divides us. And now over to Mr. Amit.
Very good evening to all. In fact, all thanks for the kind words Dr. Rubal had for about the media and the organization, or say there have been media has been receiving. I say, being editor, we receive brickbats, we receive accolades and everything, and that's a part of life. But before I start discussing today's topic, I feel it's all my pleasure to join you all today. And I am, in fact, very thankful to the organizing team and Dr. Rubal, who gave me this opportunity to be here, not just to address, but to reconnect with few people with whom perhaps I had lost contacts, the regular face-to-face contact, especially Jatinji, my former colleague and a good friend. We used to sit with Hartosh and all. And especially my sincere regards to Dr. Johal. Dr. Saab, if you, I don't know whether you remember me or not, I was you were my external examiner in university, Dr. Dasan. I was Dr. Dasan's student, and I got after that, I got one opportunity to speak to you regarding my wife's PhD. And today I am interacting with you, say maybe online, but one-on-one after that 97, I believe. After 97, we are.
Great.
My sincere regards to you. And I also
change over time.
Like Dr. Rubal mentioned about his PhD. When I briefly talk about that incident also, when you were my external examiner, I was already working. I was in TAU and I was almost employed with the Indian Express. I was colleague of Mr. Jatin, the junior colleague. So at that time, you came for and I was a bit worried because I was writing dead against the university authorities and everywhere. I was writing quite a lot, that journalism of courage which Express used to imbibe in us. So that was on full display at that time and beginning years. So I was a bit worried. Mr. Venu Prasad, the one who is now Special Principal Secretary to CM, he was a registrar. He told me, he says, you might face some brickbat from the authorities. They might. Then when you came and you made me at ease and you just mentioned one thing, Amit, क्या पूछना है? तुम तो रोज अखबार में पढ़ लेते हैं, तुमको अब जर्नलिज्म तो कर ही लिया है. And that was, I still remember those words, and the moment you said it's just a formality, and finally I sailed through those times. That's a greatness, like Dr. Rubal mentioned. I also thought I'll just start with that. So today, the topic, you spoke about the credibility. Definitely, it's a credibility at stake also at times. But still, since I started with the Express, that they imbibe that journalism of courage. You have to write whatever you want to write. And then it was, say, all those years, journalism of hope. I always try to, say, imbibe those things. Only the journalism of courage. You can't be only doing the journalism of courage, or you can't be doing only the journalism of hope. If you do the journalism of courage, it instills, it gives the society some hope. So I always try, and I always tell my team, whether this was the Indian Express, this was HT when I was heading in HT, and then now my Jagran team, this is a journalism of hope. We work on certain ethics, like today's topic, we had that media and society. I believe that this is, I was discussing with Dr. Rubal, this is a very, very generalized topic. We can talk about media, a lot of aspects are there. If we talk about society, again, the plus and minus contributions of even the society is there. So I said, I am not an academician. I'll just talk about what in journalism, or that all those years I started from a cub reporter and now heading an organization as a resident editor. So, and that too, within that you talk about the elite media, that's the English media. I spent 16, 17 years in elite media. Now for the past 6 years, I am into the vernacular media. So when you mentioned about the elite media, this reminded me of words of one of the chief minister, former chief minister. I met him once and I asked him when I was in English media, he mentioned that यार थोड़े अखबार दा जड़ा अखबार हुंदा है दा की फायदा हुंदा कुछ नहीं हुंदा ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਉਹ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਾਸਸ ਦੇ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਐਂਡ ਦੈਟ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੀ ਮੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਆਈ ਸੈਡ ਕਿ ਮਾਸਸ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤਾਂ ਓਪੀਨੀਅਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੋਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਅਖਬਾਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੋਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਔਰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਅਖਬਾਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੋਟ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਲੋਕ ਉਹ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਨੇ then at that time it was like Rubal mentioned ki I adopted I'm one of the rare bilingual so at that time I started I thought that was came to my mind ke let I should try something in the masses the journalism of the masses also let it be the all those years have been the elite media now let it be the masses and really this is a very very learning experience as an editor because I used to interact with my editors who were solely from I can say from the English media. Now being an editor I interact with my senior editorial board members who are heading India's largest this chain of newspapers all different medias vernacular medias. So then I felt that there's a lot of difference between the English media like you talked about and the media of the masses. Like as an academician, you also have the same viewpoint. As a politician, when I interacted with various people, they had also the same point. There's a lot of difference between the priorities and everything. Dr. Rubal mentioned about the pressures. Yes, pressures are there, but I personally feel, and I learned from my editors and my journalism that it depends upon the individual editor that how to what extent you undergo those pressures or how you withstand those pressures. So being say when we talk about the media and society, I believe that these are the very two important aspects of the contemporary social you could say realities in any part of the world. But I feel the more important in here is that when the society is undergoing a transition, it's going a transitional change. Like it's undergoing modernization, I must say. You could say it is undergoing the a new phase of the democracy, which we are witnessing and debating in all sort of mediums. And besides all that, the most important is when this change is happening in society with the multicultural complex social systems. This becomes very, very important. And in this context, I feel that our society, or say Indian society in particular, this fits very into this case where we are undergoing a modernization, almost irrespective of the different faith systems, customs, rituals, we could say region, caste, color, everything. Irrespective of all this, we are every society, part of the society is undergoing that modernization phase. So this extent may different, but additionally, when we talk about the media, so here the role of the media, I believe, becomes very, very important. Frankly speaking, when the media has always been an organ of the, say, public or the society or the media. Anyone said something?
You may carry.
That's fine. So when I talk about when I entered into Jagran, it's a media which was founded at the time when this Indian national movement was at the best, this Quit India movement 1942. So at the time, since that media was the kind of organ of the people against the feudal oppression, which the colonial rule or whatsoever it is. Now, frankly speaking, this in democratic state and in this context, now I feel that India is to a certain extent the freedom of the press and the media that is inconceivable. I stress on this point because of the problems that India is facing these days. And in such a, whatever we see, we talk about the mass poverty, we talk about the communal tensions, we talk about the anything, freedom of speech, whatsoever it is. There are always two different viewpoints. There's a complete polarization. And that polarization within media, I believe, stems from the polarization in the society. It's not that the media houses are polarized. I personally feel that, like when we talk about, like you, one of the speaker, researcher, she talked about the that 2014 phenomena, tweets and everything. Tweets, I don't feel that tweets or the social media or this can make or make the fortune of the society, or they can make the fortune of the individuals, or make the fortune of the politics. They can change politics. If this has been happening, then in Punjab, certainly the one who was almost on the virtual world, like you mentioned, Mr. Navjot Singh Sidhu, he ran a sustained emotional campaign, a lot of things, but they didn't withstand anything. So I personally feel that I may be wrong in academicians or the researchers' viewpoint, but as an editor, I feel that whatever we talk about that the media is doing this wrong, this is something which has creeped into the media, that all stems from the society. Whatever the society wants, since media is a part of now more or less, it's like I said, initially when pre-independence, it was kind of a organ which was fighting against the oppression, but nowadays it's considered as an industry. We term media as an industry. When we term media as an industry, then certainly this all those aspects will be taken care of. Now, what I feel, I may be wrong again, when we talk about the society and the media, researchers keep doing researches on that. But I never came across any research which, when it gives an opinion, it never talks or goes into the reasons behind that, the reasons, I say, of the foundation of the media. My suggestion is that the researchers must, whenever they do research concerning media and the society, or all those things, they must go into the details, what we call that, of the media's economic, or the foundation, the choices, nature of choices of, you could say, the research. The one can be, I say, when they study, whether they study, I'm not aware if you might have, researchers might have been doing that, but still I feel that I never came across, and I was never told, I never read in any research paper that they studied that whether the media, those people who are working in that media, what is their sociological and psychological aspects. Number two, whether with the media they are studying, which is their part of the sample or their subject of the study, whether that media has the kind of economic setup. What is the economic conditions or the economic backups of that media house? Now, when we never, because if that is a profitable, or then obviously the results would be different. So when the researcher will go into those details, the answers to certain questions which were raised during the discussion, they will definitely come up with a very concrete answer. When we say this organizational setup, like for instance, during this Kisan movement, there was a lot of debates. This media is in favor of the Kisan. This media is in favor of against the corporates. This media is doing this. But we were making, people were making, or the researchers or the social media or the society was making judgments on the basis of what they were seeing only. But I believe the researchers, whenever they do research, they must go into all these aspects, the economical setups of that, their societal, you could say, affiliations, then finally their economics. Because when we talk about the media as an industry, the economics is the most important part of that industry. So these were the few points I was mentioning. So I believe that the second point is, like sir mentioned, rural journalism is dying. Rural journalism not being addressed. I do agree. Rural journalism has been limited just to the role of panchayat or something, whatever happening. In Jagran, we have a kind of what difference I found in the English media and this Hindi journalism, especially in organization. I can't say about the whether other organizations. The organization where I worked in English and Hindi, I found that in this organization where I work, Dainik Jagran, it has a written editorial philosophy. When I took as an editor, I was made to, when I took my charge in the presence of the editorial board, I was given an editorial philosophy of the organization. And there's mentioned 10 points. As an editor, I had to take a pledge, like ministers take a pledge. I never seen any editor taking a pledge. I was made to undergo a pledge and writing that I will work on these 10 points. And these 10 points included the point which Johal sir mentioned. One was rural journalism. That is very, very important. And apart from we're given 10 sarokars. As an editor, my care is decided on how much I write on those issues. So I don't think that is dying. The point is what is dominating. Why that is dominating? Again, that stems from the societies, because society on the TV, they want to watch that. In newspapers, they want to read that. The newspaper is an industry, television is an industry. They want to sell, they want to get the TRP, they want to get the advertisement, they have to build up again. The point I stressed on, the researchers have to look into that economic setup. Now, economics of that comes from the advertisement, advertisements demand all that. So that's a very vicious circle of the industry. So whenever we examine or make judgments, I believe that has to be taken consideration. So it's in fact that our nation is, I believe that our nation or Punjab or anyway, in terms of area, we compare the Western media, we compare the Punjab media with the national media. I believe that these medias even can't be compared, because in our all nation, basically in huge of terms of its area, we say it's a much bigger than the Europe and comprises of the very, very complex, like I mentioned, the societal systems or the population, where we can't compare those things and present a model that Western media, we must emulate Western media, or in Western media something this happens. So these were the few points which I sought to mention. I'll not go much into the theoretical part. I talked about the very, very personal from my inner self, being right from a cover editor, like it was mentioned that journalists, I never faced any sort of very, very strong pressure, because I started with a cover reporter. I worked as a district head, I worked as a subdivision head, I worked as an assistant editor, associate editor, now editor. I present the policies to the board of this governance. So I never faced any such big situation where as an editor or as a reporter, I had to surrender to the wishes of the GMs, or I had to surrender to the wishes of the management. In HT, we did in Express, we did a lot of stories which shook those governments. In HT, we did a lot of stories, like I did those with Manish, we did the city center scam, we did the Wilkes removal, which he was removed, the story. We did a lot of stories, but organizations, internal, I believe that, and I tell my team, never assume that an editor will sit on a story and he will kill your story. You have to convince, you have to sell your story. If you we sold a story, I have not named the story in HT. It was, everybody tried to suppress the story. Mr. Jatin might be privy to that. But when there was a meeting with the organization head, or let's say the owners, our editor and our team, we mentioned one thing, that this is the benefit organization will gain. Is this benefit which you will get from the society can never match the benefit which the governments can give. And the owners were convinced, the stories were done, stories were flashed, the government went to the courts against the stories, our organization fought those orders in the courts, and finally that became a big issue. So that is what I learned, and I tell my team also, you have to convince, as a reporter, you have to convince me that this story will bring this to the organization. Forget about the revenue, forget about the anything. You have to convince me, and whenever they convince me, anybody I can easily challenge, because nobody can. I didn't face any pressures. I never let these pressure pass on to any of the. As far as the policies of the newspaper is concerned, I just mentioned, like We as a Jagran, we have certain very clear-cut policies as an editor. We don't, whenever we use to propagate that ideology of the organization, we use the edit pages. It's not the news pages, it's the edit pages. As an editor, I write, I propagate the organizational viewpoint, whether this is the Kisan Andolan, whether this is the 370, whether this is the Ram Mandir, or any of the issues which are plaguing the Punjab now. We ran after the elections and between the counting formation of the government, we ran a big campaign, Suniya Sarkar Punjab Ki Pukar. We spoke to eminent scholars, we spoke to various industrialists, we spoke to a lot of people. We prepared 10-point agenda for the government, and that's a part of that campaign. We spoke to the Chief Minister, and we are going to present him, and he assured us that we'll work on that. Rural journalism is part of that. We address the issue. So this is the contribution I believe the media can give to the society. It's not exactly that we publish their news. How we can contribute to the society, that is more important. I believe for my newsroom management, my news editor is there. For my newsroom, for the normal inputs or outputs, my different editors are there. Being an editor, I am told my job is how I, as an editor, I bridge the gap between the society and the media. So I work on that. I keep on discussing certain things with various academicians, various scholars, even Dr. Rubal. I keep on asking about what kind of campaign we can run, which can bridge this gap between the society. I believe that when we contribute to the society, society is certainly going to contribute to the growth of the organization. And that is, so I conclude with this point that certainly society and media, these are, like I stated earlier, these are the both are very interpersonal links. Whatever we give to the society, society gives back to us. And whatever we contribute to the society, society contributes to the growth of the organization. And that is the motive, and that should be the motive. Thank you very much. With all those words, I again thanks this global team to give me this opportunity to have interacted and listened to the those people whom I lost contact. I am more happy than in getting connected with those than participating in this or delivering a lecture kind of thing, because I am not a man who gives to the classrooms or lectures or anything. I just spoke whatever I said. Thank you very much.